Welcome back, everybody, part 3. So it gives me pleasure to introduce our founder of We Teach Me. So Kim Hyun, can you come to the stage for us, Kim? Kim's going to join me for a minute or two. So Kim's part of the co-hosting panel this evening, so thanks for joining us, Kim. So great talk from these guys.
Absolutely. You know, it's really interesting hearing about their businesses and why they run their businesses, why they created it, some of the issues that they came across. But what I really want to know about, Wayne, is what happened when their businesses started taking off, and what happened, what kind of things broke, what worked really well, how did they solve those issues that broke. I'm just really digging a bit deeper there and just really getting into the nuts and bolts of it. I think there's something there.
Yeah, so cool. And a little bit about We Teach Me and when those early days and when you were obviously launching the idea and everything else like that. How were you feeling at the time? What were some of your thoughts?
I think back to when our We Teach Me took off, and I remember feeling very stressed. I don't know if our speakers can identify with that, but we were feeling really, really stressed because we were hustling all the time, trying to get clients, trying to make things work. And I remember the first time we signed our first big client, we just sat there and it was like this huge breath, this huge weight just came off my shoulders. And I turned to my business partner, Demi, who you know, and I just said, you know what, I think we're going to be okay. Yeah, those were the exact words I said. And it'd be interesting to see if Andrew and Joe have a similar story.
Yeah, which we'll be able to dig a little bit deeper as well. So, Kim, I'm actually going to invite them back to the stage. So, Andrew Hardwick, can you come and join us back on the stage, please, Andrew? Thank you very much. And Joe Woodham, can you join us as well, please, Joe? Thanks very much. Okay.
All right, I'll kick off with the first question, which is, tell us about the moment when you landed your first big client, and how did it feel, what happened, and what did you think?
Well, that one's pretty easy to remember because I missed the call. It was, a small business. Who's going to call me at 9:05 in the morning when I'm getting coffee? And I got back to the office, and it was someone from Mercedes-Benz calling to say they wanted to have a chat. I, funnily enough, was doing a magazine for the VACC and put a filler ad in their, I think their directory or something, because they were one short, and that's what they had read. So anyway, I had to do a bit of a pitch for it, but nothing like you do these days with procurement and all the processes involved. But it felt pretty darn good to get a brand like that as probably literally my third client. So it was a big moment, yeah.
Mine actually was my first deal. So Redbubble was my first client, and at the time they had about 5 staff in their tech team. Redbubble grew slowly, so I just kind of fostered that relationship for a few years, and then they really, really took off a couple of years later. And with that, we were there. We had built that relationship, so we were able to sort of help scale them. And they went from 5 people in their tech team to a couple of hundred. So it was huge growth, and it was a good journey for us to go on with them. So it didn't happen when we first picked them up going, oh wow, this is great. But over time they become a massive brand. It was exciting.
Yep. So thanks. Yeah, cool. Thanks, guys. So that moment, that obviously, were there any celebrations? Did you guys, I don't know, did you jump to the ceiling? Were you kind of thinking, okay, right, let's go out and party? Or was it kind of head down, look for the next client?
Mine was always head down, look for the next client. Every time I get a big client, it's very exciting for a short space of time, but then you've got to start delivering on the work. Winning the client or getting the agreement to actually start working with the client is fantastic, but I guess the delivery is where you actually start to build the relationship and build the credibility. So for me, it's kind of, okay, straight back to work. It's we really need to make us stand out as a valid partner to build the relationship, because that's how you get more business out of that business.
Yeah. I think it's personally one of my biggest failings, and probably I think it's quite common that you sort of don't take time to celebrate the successes and pat yourself on the back and go, wow, we've done that or achieved that because of what we've done, and so I wish I had done more of that over the years. But I think also to that point that things, and I think you sort of touched on it, things don't always pan out the way you expect. So it's not like you win the lottery and you've got $1 million in the bank. There's so many other moving parts to happen. And I remember one day winning a contract it was huge. It was like twice the size of or double our revenue. And I pulled up to get a coffee on the way back to the office, and I had a bit of a moment in the car. I was like, I can't believe I've got this. And that was supposed to be $800,000 a year, I think, at the time, and it ended up being about $100 grand over the year, and it actually cost us money because we were resourced for it. And I think you sort of get into a bit of you just get used to, you need to move on to the next thing and not get caught up on being too kind to yourself along the way. But certainly I think, definitely should celebrate the wins more, and it's important to the team and the staff around you, and it comes out in the personality of your business too.
Do you have any moments of reflection? Do you kind of factor it into your daily or monthly kind of activities to kind of take stock of what has been happening and use that for planning purposes as well? Or?
Well, we stop as a team to celebrate at the end of every month. Even when we've had a bad month, it just varies what we do at the end of that month, I suppose. But we try and stop to celebrate, which it's probably the biggest failure as me as a business owner is I'm always looking at the next thing. But for the team, it's more important to actually celebrate their wins. So we try and make an effort to actually go and enjoy ourselves at the end of every month and celebrate the performance, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, we touch base weekly for a work in progress and look at the business from all aspects and projections and all sorts of things. I think one of the most important things to the team is we do something at the end of WIP called traits, which is a staff member who's expressed, shown the traits of someone who works in our business, and so everyone will give a trait to somebody else, and it's just basically a good pat in the back from one of your peers. That it means a lot to people, those kind of little things. It doesn't have to be a big celebration or a gift voucher or whatever. It's simple thanks means a lot along the way.
Let's flip the question, right? We talked about the moment that your startup takes off, or your business takes off, or you go, oh, you know what, I'm going to be okay. What about a moment when things did not go so well and you said, I am up, not a good place?
What day is it? Oh, look, to be honest, it can, I won't refer to one particular moment, but there's so many times throughout my business that, we've had a big win and then we'll get a kick in the pants the next day sort of thing, and it's very demoralising, to be honest. And, so I mean, I got two phone calls one day and lost half my business when I was in the earlier days. And that kind of thing's pretty tough at the time. And you go, heck, how am I going to move forward? Or in Joe's words, shit, how am I going to move forward from there? But somehow you do. You always sort of... I heard a podcast recently. I was walking along and I think it was a sports psychologist said it's not about confidence, it's about courage. And I think as long as you've got that courage and you're set on what you're trying to achieve, then you move on to the next thing and you get through it.
Mine was when I lost my first biggest client. At that point, that was half of our revenue. So in a decision that came in because they had hired some new senior executives, literally overnight, they've halved our revenue. For me, it was a big kick in the pants and more of an awakening. Is like, okay, well, I can never do this again where we're relying 50% on one client. So although it was very, very painful and it took us a couple of months to recover in terms of finding new clients to sort of offset that, it was more of a learning curve for us of, shit, let's not let that happen again.
Cool. I think we'll put it out to the audience now, Kim. How about that?
Yeah, of course. Happy to do that.
So we're going to send a microphone around.
All right.
So, yeah.
And I'll pass this microphone to us.
There we go. So who's got a question for us? There we go.
So this is for both of you. You're both in the world of clients and trying to get new clients and maintain relationships with new clients. So my question is, what habits do you have to start your day? Because there might be a day that you go like, I'm going to land this morning, or it might be, we've got to start with this relationship, we're going to start building this relationship. So what routines do you do to kind of start your day to get yourself into that mindset?
I'm clearly not going to gym at 7. I personally just try to make sure I'm in the right frame of mind. So take care of myself. But if I've got something on that day, I just want to be mindful of it and I suppose be engaged with it. But I don't have set routines that I go through or whatever. Certainly talking to my team about various aspects and making sure that I feel that I've got the information and even just talking to them about the situation you might be going into is always helps get the mind flowing.
I don't have like an hour of power where I go out and market for the first hour of the day. I try and situate, like when I feel good and I'm feeling comfortable, that's when I'll call clients or potential clients, but I always try and call with a reason. So I'm not going to call for just for the sake of calling. Like I have to find a pain point and I have to find a reason to be actually making that phone call. If it's a referred connection from someone else in the business, or if I actually know that they really have a need for me to be calling to solve that need, then I'll call. But I can't do like an hour of power in the morning where I just cold call people for the sake of cold calling. Like it really needs to have a purpose behind it.
Anybody else? Yes.
So kind of following up in terms of your talk about clients, and you both mentioned when you landed your big clients, can you be specific in terms of what your process was to actually approaching those big clients? So kind of rewinding from, I feel great because I got the big client, but what would you say, how did you approach that? And how did you feel about approaching that? Was there any apprehension? Was there any sort of fear, trepidation in terms of approaching these clients? Did you feel big enough? So I'd like to hear those kind of stories.
In the start, I always had this I guess picture in my mind that being a small agency, you couldn't approach the bigger companies. But I think things have kind of turned on its head these days, whereas smaller agencies like mine are able to get into them sort of because we're specialists. We can deliver a solution that the larger corporates can't. In terms of approaching large businesses, once again, I go back to finding a pain point. If they're having a real issue with their current providers, let's talk recruitment for a standpoint. If we're coming up against a large recruitment agency, they don't shift with technology as quick as a smaller business would. So I'm able to deliver a service that necessarily they wouldn't be able to. So I find that pain point in that larger corporate, and I'll find out who the right people are to speak to, and then just work my way through the business. So I'll ask for referrals until I get to the right person. That right person opens the door and I can start working with them.
I'm not a born salesman, don't even love talking about myself. So apprehension, yeah, definitely. Always apprehension and nervousness and all sorts of things like that. But I can categorically say our business is totally built on relationships. And that comes down to being genuine. And, like Joe was saying, you've got to have something to talk about and you've got to actually have something to offer. And, there's a whole solution selling thing and that kind of thing. But it's, I think it's just, at the end of the day, for me, it's been about being genuine who I am and I think if you exhibit that you're passionate about wanting to work with them and look for avenues where you can suggest things or whatever that is, like they see that as being interesting. And quite often they'll prefer that. They prefer the person who's sitting opposite them is nervous in a job interview because that person cares. So as far as our business goes, it's all been about relationships.
Anybody else?
You spoke before about not knowing how to process the invoice and also about the risks of losing some of your key clients. What are some other moments that kind of might have tripped you up that you'd like to have gone back and warned yourself about?
Sorry, I didn't quite hear all that.
I guess my question is, what are some of the key risks or things that might have tripped you up in starting your business up that you wish you'd known about beforehand?
Right. I don't know if there's necessarily things that have tripped me up. It's actually just been the whole learning process, and it takes time, and you need to make mistakes to learn. And to give you anything specific, it's too hard, because it's like Joe was saying before, through the growth process, you work out how to do an invoice. You've never done that before. You work out how to hire someone. Every day I'm having to learn. So the things that trip me up are the things that I don't know, and I have to learn quickly to accommodate. Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, I'd go on to that. It's like, I don't know what is going to trip me up until I trip up on it. So there's no magic wand going, what do I need to do, or what agreements do I need to have in place, until you kind of work out, oh shit, I need to have this. Where do I go find it? And that's just surrounding yourself with good people. So like when you need something, you can go ask advice to get that real quick. But I think that's the fun of a startup, really.
What have you learned about leading a team or human behavior through leading a team?
That I'm bad at it. I think everyone's very different and driven in different ways. So for me, I run a sales team. Not everyone's driven by money. So you've really got to work out what that tangible thing is that actually drives them and brings them to work every day. So I think it's really just, for me, trying to work out what every person is on an individual basis, and then trying to work to their strengths. That's probably the best way I can answer it.
Yeah, look, I mean, I've always loved people, love talking to people and enjoy people, but it's funny when it comes to business, sometimes, I've just been so focused on getting the job done, you just expect people to follow you, and it doesn't happen that way. And so I think, I suppose the best way to engage people is make them feel part of it, and let them have some autonomy, and let them make their mistakes, and let them have their input into our direction and where we're going. And I can categorically say everyone in our business has that ability to do that. And once they realise it, it's funny, the shift in their engagement in what we're doing, once they realise that can affect the outcome.
Cool. I've got a little question for Kim. So just on that as well, about leading and things like that. So there's a lot of focus within We Teach Me on values. So Kim, could you maybe share a little bit on how that makes us more aligned within We Teach Me and leading?
Of course. The biggest compliment I think that a leader can receive is when their team can outperform without them needing to be there. I truly believe that that's the biggest compliment a leader can receive. And to help achieve that, there are guidelines as to how people behave and how you make decisions, and whether what you're doing is the right thing or the wrong thing. And we provide those guidelines by values. So, what are the values of the business? What do we stand for? Who are we as people? And for a way that we bring it alive is we hire by values. We look at the people that we interview. Are they people who live and breathe our values? When we celebrate something, we always reference it back to values. So Wayne did an amazing job at Master Series, and he's always going above and beyond. We fire people when they break our values. And the magical moment for me was when I saw team members guide and coach other team members based on those values. And I sat back and I said, you know what, I feel like my job here is done. I feel like the team doesn't need me anymore. And then I went off and started Master Series.
Good work. Any other questions out there?
I have one, and this was something which Joe said before, which just really jumped out at me. And Joe said something about ego. You felt like there was a moment when you tripped up on your ego, and that's where mistakes were made. And I look at businesses and companies, and I see this a lot. Founders at the start, you have a healthy confidence, you have an ego, and that gets things done. But then eventually it trips up and it hinders more than it helps. I'm curious as to your experiences about, was there a time when you felt like your own ego got in the way of the growth of your business?
Mine was really about staff. everyone, like, as a business owner, like I'm constantly meeting other business owners. The first question that they ask is, how many staff you got? How big's your business? I was like, I want to look bigger, so I'll start hiring more people. It wasn't necessarily what my business needed, and it was costing me a lot of money. We weren't able to deliver as much work as we had with overheads. So I was like, am I really growing for the right reasons? And I think that was probably when I realized my ego was probably making a lot more decision than the business needed. If that answers your question.
Yeah, look, I mean, I actually can't think of an example where my ego has tripped me up trying to grow the business. I think, I don't know if you call it ego, but constantly trying to be more than we are, and you know, so someone rings up and is only you in the office, you're like, oh, I'll just put you through to finance. You know, that kind of thing, that's ego. But I wouldn't say that it's been the thing that's tripped up along the way.
I must say I'm guilty of that with customer support. Wayne, you don't know this. Customer support in the early days, I pick up the phone and say, let me just put you through to Michael. Hello, this is Michael.
You still do that now.
Does anyone in the audience have any other questions? Yes.
So my last question is for both of you again, and that's about mentorship or coaching. Have either of you along this business journey either sought out mentorship or a coach, or have you actually put yourself in that role and considered yourself to be a mentor or a coach to young startup founders, etc.?
Definitely. Well, I went through EO for 7 years, and that's not mentorship as such, but it's certainly sharing and has a lot of the same sort of effects, I suppose, or results. But yes, I asked someone that I'd come across in the industry who ran a $170 million agency and actually found time for me once a month for, just because that's the type of personality he is, which was hugely helpful. So then I've moved on from there and asked somebody else now. So it's definitely helpful, and I've never done it in a structured way where it's like not so much coaching, but it's more, these are the challenges I'm facing this month or whatever, and I'm talking through it, and I found that the most helpful. As far as mentoring someone, I haven't mentored someone for a long period of time or anything like that, but I always take the time if someone wants to talk. So, yeah.
I'm big on mentors and coaches. I've always tried to find the best coaches I could to help me go through the phases that I need, and mentors as well. I think people look at mentors in a way that you need to have someone that's there to help you. A mentor doesn't need to be that. Like, it could be a business owner that's one of your competitors that you just catch up with and talk business, and they give you advice on what they're doing. I've always done that. Like, I ask questions all the time because I don't know the answers, and I understand for me to get ahead, I need to use other people's brains. It's just easier.
Cool. So we're coming towards the end. So before I kind of put the final question out there, has anybody else got something they'd like to share with us? Yes, gentleman at the back.
Hi, how you doing? Just wondering, from early on, how did you set your strategy and vision, and has that sort of morphed or changed over the years?
At the start, I found a niche and I leveraged the shit out of it. I found what no one else was doing, and then tried to work with that, because then I could use it as a branding strategy, I could use it as marketing, I could bring in clients. That's how I started at the start, and I think we lost it a little bit for a while there. But what we do very differently to our competitors is we're able to pivot and move very quickly with the new trending technologies. So I just find areas that are pain points for the customers that I want to work with, and I leverage them. Does that...
Yeah, well, we've been going nearly 13 years, and I'm pretty sure when I started, the world probably wasn't as well educated on a scale where, about strategy and vision and all that sort of thing. Like, I certainly had them, but not in any fashion that would really be helpful and help drive the business. So I would probably say I've learnt the most in only the last 3 years. and really hone down onto what we are and where we're going. Not that I was lost in the woods. It's just, you know, just so happened that that's how long it took to work out. And as I said earlier, it sort of changes. You know, you constantly got to look at your value proposition and look at where you're heading. And obviously, there's new niches that open up here and there, and so it's constantly moving as well.
Cool. So just last question then, guys. So if you could give, maybe it'd be quite generous to give 3 of your top tips to actually getting off the ground and starting and launching your business, what would it be to the audience this evening?
Have you got yours up?
No.
No. Top tips.
One's good enough. Number one top tip for launching and getting it out there.
Look, I think we've probably, between the two of us, probably covered off a lot of them. Like for me, it's talking to as many people as you possibly can, and that helps shape, you know, your business and also yourself about how to approach it. My second one would be to be true to yourself and be really sure about what you want to do, and don't look back. You just got to move forward and go for it. And yeah, probably the one I said earlier about just, you know, giving yourself a pat in the back and celebrating successes, because if you don't do that, the journey becomes very, very tough along the way without actually realising that how far you've come. It's actually, funnily enough, even to today, it's other people who tell me, you know, how well we've done rather than us realising it. And I think that's actually a key thing.
Mine would be find an area in a market that you think you can add value in, and then just listen to that market to drive you forward. Like I feel like customer feedback is the best thing to grow a business, and that's what you should be focusing on.
Cool. Excellent. Great way to wrap it up, guys. So thank you very much. Can we have a round of applause for our guest speakers this evening? Okay, guys, so thank you very much for coming tonight. We do appreciate your attendance, and if you've found some value in tonight's event, then our next event is how to build a business. So you can find us here at the same time. So guys, I'd just like to have another round of applause for our guest speakers. So Andrew and Joe, thank you very much.